What's going on, Infected? It's Wolf with the Kwarenteen, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to play a game by the name of So Long My World. Now, the theme of So Long My World is basically all of humankind and all of human existence and all proof humans ever existed is going to be wiped out at midnight of the current day. So you have approximately 12 hours, according to the game, in order to live your final moments. So it's up to you on how you're going to live those final moments. Are you going to be nice and try to make the last 12 hours of life bearable? Or are you going to be just a jerk and just let your primal instincts take over, or are you going to have a blend of both? Now, I mentioned you have 12 hours. Now, that's going to be a 3 or 4 player game. That time frame is going to change based on the number of players that you're going to be playing with. But then there are also some cards that is going to shorten or extend that amount. Now, before we get started, it's very important that I mention that everything you see here is a prototype copy of the game. So it is, of course, going to be subject to change. So without further ado, let's go see how the game's played. Alright, so the first thing you're going to do is set up So Long My World. Now what you're going to do is you're going to put the clock in the middle of the table, and you're going to place the marker on the number 1. Now this is going to vary though depending on the number of players. If you're playing 1 player, there's going to be special scenarios and you'll just follow the special rules on those. Now if you're playing 2, 3, or 4 players, you start at 1. If you're playing with 5, you instead start at 3. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to take the 6 vision cards and you're going to give them a good shuffle, and you're going to place them around the clock in a circular pattern so that way they're in reach of all players. Then you're going to prepare the event deck. Now you're going to do that by taking the reboot cards and you're going to give them a good shuffle, and you're going to put one of them down. Then you're going to shuffle this, and then take a number of cards equal to the number of rounds it's going to take for the clock to hit midnight. So in this case, 12, but minus 1 because you already have a reboot card. So in this case, you're going to take 11 cards, like so. You're going to give those a good shuffle, and you're going to place them within easy reach of all of the players. You're then going to take the remanent cards, and you're going to give them a good shuffle, and you're going to place them within easy reach of all of the players, and then you're going to give each player one of each starting card, which would be Soul Box and Life is a Journey. Once you've done that, each player will then draw 3 additional remanent cards, bringing their hand up to 5, and this will be their starting hand. Then you're going to take these gestalt cards, and you're going to take 2 for every player. Now, needs to be noted, I only have 6 due to the limitations of the prototype, but there will be more in the final product. So in this case, we're just going to assume we have a 3-player game, so I will have 6 gestalt cards, and you'll put them in easy reach of all the players. Then you're going to build the feeling reserve by placing all of the feeling tokens near the board. And then you're going to take the inverse marks of soul and you're going to place them near the clock. Now we like to place them in the center of the clock because we find that more aesthetically pleasing. But as long as it's near the board somewhere where everybody can reach it, it'll be fine. Then the last 2 things you're going to do is you're going to give each player the vision tokens that match the vision cards that are out on the playing field. And the very last thing is you're going to decide who is going to go first, and they will get the first player token. Now the last thing you're going to do before you get started is you're going to get to choose whether you want 1 red or 1 green token. Now each player is going to get to do this, and of course you're going to want to look at your hand of starting cards to determine which one you would like. Now before we get started, let's take a look at a couple aspects of the game. So these are your feeling tokens. So from left to right we have hope, nostalgia, resignation, despair, and madness. Now hope and nostalgia are considered good feelings. Of course, resignation is a neutral feeling, and then despair and madness are considered bad feelings. So when we look at a card, we can see from top to bottom we have how many victory points this card is worth. This is, of course, the name. Then you have the beautiful artwork on the card. Then you have the cost of the card. Now, this is where those feelings come into play, because in this case, you're going to need 1 nostalgia and 1 despair token to be able to play this card. However, at the end of the game, you're going to look at what the majority of this card is. So this would actually be a neutral card because it has 1 good and 1 bad feeling on it. Whereas this would be considered a good card because it has 1 neutral and 1 good. So for the most part, it is a good card. And then you guessed it, this would be considered a bad card because it has majority bad symbols down here. However, going back to our original card, if you look below it, it's going to have any effects for when you play this card. Now the symbol you see here, I'll be covering a little bit later, but if there's any text down here aside from the flavor text at the bottom, this is going to be what that card does when you play it. Then when we look at gestalt cards work exactly the same. You have the number of victory points this card's worth, the name of the card, artwork, and the card cost. However, the card costs on gestalt cards are generally a little bit more steep, but they have more rewards, such as this case, more points, or in this case, some of them have abilities. But this only gives 1 point, but it allows you to play another card out of your hand for just a Mark of Soul. And then lastly, we're going to take a look at event cards. Now, event cards follow the same general pattern. You're going to have the name of the event card. You're going to have flavor text that adds a little bit of a story and a flavor element to the game. And then you have any decisions or any consequences or just events that happen. You're going to follow the text. It's going to tell you exactly what to do. Now at the bottom, you're going to see all 6 of the vision cards and you're going to see tokens. This shows where in the beginning of every round, which will make sense in a minute, where you're going to put new tokens. And now you're ready to play. So what you're going to do, starting with first player, you're going to draw an event card. Now the event card, you're going to look at this here and you're going to read the flavor text and you're going to do what here says. So this says, it gives you a choice. You can go back to sleep. You'd rather live your last days in a pleasant dream world. If you do, you're just going to get one of these. If you do, each other player may discard 1 card. Or the other action is everybody can just gain a Mark of Soul. So in this case, maybe I want everybody just to gain a green token. It'll go into your little supply here, and then you would add the tokens that you see here. So as we can see, I added a blue token to here, I added a black token to here, and I added a red token to here. Now earlier I mentioned cards that have this clock. Now during the choice phase, starting in turn order, players may play cards that use these clocks. Now they work kind of like an instant in Magic the Gathering. You would play it, they resolve in turn order, and they're just pretty much out of turn things that you get to do. Now you still have to pay for the cost, and the card will still stay in front of you, giving you any victory points, which will make a little bit more sense later. So then we move into the choice phase. So the choice phase is where you're going to be using these tokens. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to look through these tokens, and each token has artwork on it that relate to the current visions here. Now each vision has their own unique ability, which I'll touch on a little bit later, but you're going to be choosing which one of these locations you would like to visit during your choice phase. Now it's very, very important with this for 2 reasons. The first one is, in turn order, you're actually going to be activating the location and taking tokens on, which again will make more sense. The other reason why is if you're playing in a 4 or 5 player game, if everybody goes to the same location, then that location is going to be removed from the game permanently. So it's very important that you put a lot of thought into which one of these 6 locations that you're wanting to go to. Now when that happens, each player starting in turn order is going to be able to get 1 token corresponding to the affinity here. So this would be black token, so each player that did go there would get a black token, but now that card is removed from the game. So for example, let's say I go to this location. Now in the final product, there's going to be a player color that goes around this so everybody knows whose are whose, but let's say I go here. So I would place my token on there, and then in turn order, you're going to proceed to activate the card. Now with knowing that, when you look at the starting cards, you notice they have a little clock here. These are called hinder cards. And as I mentioned, these could be played kind of as interrupts. So that makes these especially important because, for example, I can just move to an adjacent vision. So if somebody that's going before me is maybe also going to Death Drive, they're going to be able to take tokens before I can, so maybe I want to play this. Or maybe vice versa. The soul box, I can just immediately take things before anybody is able to do theirs. So there's a lot of thought process that goes into choosing where you're going to go. But let's assume that I go to Death Drive here. So what you're going to do is, of course, place your token on the card. Now, the final product, each one of these tokens are going to have player colors associated with them that you can see whose or what. But again, prototype components. But let's take a look at what one of these cards look like. So looking at the card, you see, of course, my token, because this is where I went. You have the beautiful artwork, the token, the drain token, what you'll get if you drain, the name of the card, and what the card actually does. So once everybody's revealed in your turn order, the players are going to, in this case, let's say I'm the first player, I am on this card. The first thing that's going to happen is I'm going to get to activate the text on the card. So I can remove a remanent card to gain the same feeling of its cost. So what that means is, let's say earlier I played this card to get its effect or whatever. but I really need these tokens for maybe a better card. At this point, I can take this card from in front of me, and I can put it in the discard pile, losing the victory points, but I will get these tokens back. Could be useful for some good cards like these that maybe don't give you victory points and you want these tokens back. And now you're going to move to the drain portion of this phase. So you can do one of 4 different things. You can take 2 tokens that are already on it. So in this case, there's 1 red, so it's not really efficient for me to do this. But later on throughout the course of the game, maybe this will get more tokens on it. So if I drain, maybe I take these 2 tokens or 2 neutral or whatever. Any combination you want, you would get 2 tokens. The next thing you could do is you can take whatever this token is, and you could take that from the supply. So in this case, you would just take one of these and that's it. You would put it in your supply. You could take 1 inverse mark of soul and you would add it to your supply. And lastly, you can draw 1 card from the system, which is the central deck, and you can add it to your hand. Then you're going to move to the remanent phase. Now during the remanent phase, it's when you're going to be playing these cards that are in your hand, and you're going to be paying the costs that you see here. So in this case, I'm going to play this by getting rid of these 2 tokens, and it's just going to be worth 2 points. Now one last time is of course the name, and down at the bottom, when you play this card, you get to activate the text that's on it. Now I get to choose another player that just gets a feeling of their choice, which doesn't sound, like it's a good card, but it is also giving me 2 points because I'm being kind. Now some of the cards, such as this, again, worth 1 victory point, and cost a green and a neutral, and you get to bring the clock 1 hour back. It's overall good because you're giving everybody another hour to live. Now keep in mind, as you play these cards, these are going to stay out, which is what makes that death drive card so good, is because maybe I played this earlier, but now I really need these tokens, so I can sacrifice the 1 point this card gives me to get these tokens back for maybe a different card in the future, maybe gives me more victory points. Now another thing you can do is if you have any inverse marks of souls, you can take them and return them back to the bank and draw a gestalt card. Now as I said earlier, generally speaking, gestalt cards are just really strong, have a lot of victory points, let you play cards for free, stuff like that. Then you move on to the end phase. You're going to take the first player marker, you're going to give it to the next player, and you're going to advance time by 1. Now once the clock strikes midnight, all of human existence now no longer exists, and you then go to final scoring. So for in-game scoring, if you have any feeling tokens, you can go ahead and place them back into the bank. They do not contribute to in-game scoring unless cards were to say otherwise. And then for every 3 inverse marks of soul, you're going to get 1 point, and you're going to count up points that are actually on the cards that you've played that are sitting in front of you. So in this case, I have a total of 5 points. 3 from my gestalt card, 1 from this card, and 1 from here. Then you're going to look over the type of card you have and see if they're either good, bad, or neutral. So in this case, this is bad because it's 2 red, 1 green, so the majority red, so it's a bad card. This is a bad card because it only has 1 red. This is bad because it has red and black, and this is bad because it has 2 black. So because I only played bad cards, then I would get a bonus point. So in this case, I would get 4 extra points just for being a jerk at the final times. Now if you played 5 cards, you would wind up getting 6 extra points. Now this works whether you have all good, all neutral, or all bad. If you have any mixture between them, then you do not get this bonus. You're then going to deduct any points for each card that you have in your hand. So for each card that's in your hand, you're going to lose 1 point. So in this case, I had a total of 5 points. Minus 3, I ended the game with 2 points. However, there's a couple of things that I didn't mention, one of them being the reboot card. So when this card pops up, you're going to do what it says. So in this case, advance the clock by 1 hour. To avoid the effect, all players must spend an inverse mark of soul. So if everybody agrees and has them, you can put these back into the bank and you can ignore the effect. And once you've resolved this, you're going to take it, you're going to shuffle it back in with the event deck, and some of those events that you had may wind up coming out again. And that is how you play So Long My World. I hope this helped you learn how to play the game. If the game looks interesting, I'll have a link down in the description, take you directly over to their Kickstarter once it's up, and hopefully you'll consider backing the project. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you guys next time in the Kwarenteen.